This is a recording made by my father, Thomas Beaulieu, in September 2021, 2 weeks before he died of pancreatic cancer. He was 68 years old. For 43 years, he kept a secret that destroyed him piece by piece. He made me promise to wait 1 year after his death before sharing this. It's been a year. The world deserves to know what's out there, even if they don't believe it. What follows are my father's words, transcribed from the audio recording.
My name is Thomas Beaulieu. I was a mountaineer. Was. I haven't climbed since 1979, and after you hear this, you'll understand why. In November 1978, I was 25 years old and thought I was invincible. I'd summited peaks across North America, done solo expeditions that other climbers called reckless. I was good, maybe too good, definitely too confident. I went into the British Columbia mountains that November for a 2-week solo climb. Remote area, north of Prince George, barely mapped. That should have been my first warning. But I wanted the challenge. Wanted to prove I could handle terrain that scared other climbers. The weather report said light snow. Manageable. What I got was a blizzard that came out of nowhere on day 4. I was at about 8,000 feet when the storm hit. Wind so strong it knocked me off my feet. Snow so thick I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. Temperature dropped 30 degrees in an hour. I tried to set up emergency shelter, but the wind tore my tent apart. My gear scattered across the mountainside. I managed to keep my sleeping bag and some rope, but everything else, gone. Food, stove, most of my cold weather equipment, just gone. The storm lasted 3 days. 3 days of huddling in a crevice, trying not to freeze to death. I melted snow for water, ate nothing, waited for it to pass. By day 3, I was hypothermic. Fingers and toes numb, mind foggy. I knew the signs. I was dying. When the storm finally broke, I tried to descend, but I was disoriented, lost. The landscape had changed completely under all that snow. Nothing looked familiar. I wandered for 2 more days, exhausted, starving, freezing. I fell more than I walked. On the 5th day, I couldn't get up anymore. I lay in the snow and accepted it. This was how I'd die. Alone on a mountain I'd been too arrogant to respect. I closed my eyes, started drifting. Hypothermia's final stage, you get warm, peaceful. Your body gives up trying to survive. I was almost gone when I heard it. Footsteps, heavy, crunching through snow, multiple sets. I thought it was a rescue team. Managed to open my eyes. 2 figures stood over me. Backlit by the setting sun, I couldn't see details. Just massive silhouettes. Bigger than any human, 8 feet tall, maybe more. I thought I was hallucinating. Death dreams. Then one of them reached down and picked me up. Not gently, exactly. More like you'd pick up an injured animal, but not roughly either. Careful, deliberate. The hands were huge, covered in hair, not gloves. Hair. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. Tried to struggle, but I had no strength. The creature, because that's what it was, I knew that now, even through my dying fog, slung me over its shoulder like I weighed nothing. Started walking. The other one followed. I could hear it behind us, making low vocalizations. Communication. They were talking to each other. I passed out. When I woke up, I was warm for the first time in days. I was lying on something soft, moss, branches, furs. A fire burned a few feet away. Real fire. I could hear it crackling, feel the heat on my face. For a moment, I thought I'd been rescued. Thought I was in a ranger station or emergency shelter. Then I focused on my surroundings. I was in a cave. Deep. The firelight didn't reach the back. The ceiling was maybe 15 feet high, rough rock, ancient formations. and around the fire sat 5 of them, massive, covered in reddish-brown hair, faces that were almost human but not quite, broader, flatter, with pronounced brow ridges, eyes that reflected the firelight like an animal's, but with unmistakable intelligence behind them. They were watching me. I tried to sit up. Every muscle screamed. Frostbite damage, exhaustion, dehydration. The nearest one, the largest, clearly male, made a low sound, not threatening, almost like telling me to stay down, to rest. I stayed down. For the next hour, I drifted in and out. When I was conscious, I watched them. They mostly ignored me, going about their business, tending the fire, passing food between them, making those vocalizations, complex, varied. Language. They had language. One of them, smaller, possibly female, brought me something, a wooden bowl filled with water. She set it beside me, gestured at it, made an encouraging sound. I drank. It was the best water I'd ever tasted. Later, she brought food, some kind of root vegetable cooked in the fire. And meat. I didn't ask what kind. I was too hungry to care. I ate, slept, woke, ate again. This pattern continued for days. As I recovered strength, I started to observe more carefully, to understand where I was and what I was dealing with. The cave system was extensive, multiple chambers branching off the main area. I could hear sounds from deeper in, more vocalizations, movement. There were more of them than just the 5 I'd first seen. I counted 9 individuals eventually. 3 large males, 2 females, 4 juveniles of varying ages, a family, a tribe. They had a social structure. The largest male, I started thinking of him as the alpha, seemed to be in charge. He made decisions. The others deferred to him, but not out of fear, out of respect. The females cared for the juveniles, but also participated in everything else. Hunting, gathering, decision-making. This wasn't a primitive hierarchy. It was complex. The juveniles were curious about me. The youngest one, maybe equivalent to a 6-year-old human, would creep close when the adults weren't paying attention, stare at me with huge eyes, then scurry away when I moved. They communicated constantly. Not just vocalizations, gestures, expressions, touch, full language with grammar and meaning. After 2 weeks, I could stand, walk a little. My frostbite was healing. I'd keep my fingers and toes, barely. The tribe had saved my life. But I had no idea how to leave. The cave entrance was blocked by snow. Not completely. Air got in, light got in. But no person could dig through that. Much packed ice and snow. We were sealed in until spring. And "we" was the operative word. I wasn't a prisoner. They never restrained me, never threatened me. But I also wasn't free. The mountain had imprisoned us all together. I tried to communicate, pointed at myself, said Thomas repeatedly. The alpha watched me with those intelligent eyes, then made a sound. Deep, resonant. His name, maybe. I couldn't reproduce it. My throat couldn't make that sound. But he understood the concept. Names, identity. He pointed at the others, made sounds, introducing them. I was living with a family of Sasquatch, in a cave system in the British Columbia Mountains. And I wouldn't leave until the snow melted. That would be 4 months away. 4 months living with creatures that shouldn't exist, learning their ways, becoming part of their world. I thought that was the hard part. Surviving until spring, making it through the isolation and strangeness. I had no idea what was coming. No idea what they really were, what they did to protect their territory, what they would teach their young, and what I would witness that would ensure I could never speak of this for 43 years. Not until now. Not until I'm dying, and the secret has become too heavy to take to my grave. Because people need to know, need to understand. There are things in those mountains, things that are intelligent, social, cultural, things that have every right to exist. But they are also apex predators, and they protect what's theirs. God help anyone who forgets that. The first month was the hardest. Not physically, my body healed, but mentally, accepting my reality. I was trapped in a cave with 9 creatures that science said didn't exist, waiting for spring thaw with no guarantee I'd survive that long. But they never gave me reason to fear them. Not at first. They fed me, shared their food without hesitation. Roots, tubers they'd stored, dried meat, fish from some underground stream I never found. Sometimes one of the males would leave through some passage I couldn't fit through and return hours later with fresh game. Deer, mountain goat, once a bear cub. They ate raw meat sometimes. Other times they cooked it over the fire. They had fire. They maintained it constantly, adding wood from a stockpile, keeping coals alive. That alone should have told me how intelligent they were. By week 3, I was strong enough to move around the cave freely. The Alpha, I still thought of him that way, watched me constantly those first days, assessing, deciding if I was a threat. I tried to make myself useful, helped maintain the fire, organized the food stores the way they seemed to prefer. Small things, showing I could contribute. One of the females, I called her Gray, because her fur was lighter, almost silver in the firelight, seemed to appreciate this. She started including me in daily tasks, showing me which roots were good to eat, how to tell if meat had gone bad. Basic survival. The juveniles warmed to me faster. The youngest, the curious one, I called Little Brother. He'd sit near me and mimic my movements. When I stretched, he stretched. When I scratched my head, he scratched his. The others thought this was hilarious. They made sounds that could only be laughter. I started picking up their language, not speaking it. My voice couldn't produce most of their sounds, but understanding it. Their vocalizations had patterns. Certain sounds meant specific things. A low rumble meant danger or warning. A series of clicks meant come here. High-pitched hoots meant excitement or happiness. Combined with gestures and context, I could follow maybe 20% of their communication. By month 2, that jumped to 40%. The Alpha tested me one day, led me deeper into the cave system with just hand gestures. Follow me. We walked for 10 minutes through narrow passages, complete darkness except for a torch he carried. My heart pounded. Was this it? Was he taking me somewhere to kill me? We emerged in a chamber I hadn't seen before, larger than the main cave, and covering the walls were images, paintings, handprints in red ochre, drawings of animals, mountains, stick figures that had to represent them. Some looked ancient, faded. Others were fresh. Art. They created art. The Alpha gestured at the walls, then at me. Made a complex vocalization I didn't fully understand, but the meaning was clear. This is who we are. This is our history. He was showing me their culture. I touched one of the handprints. My hand was tiny compared to it. The Alpha placed his hand next to mine on the wall. The size difference was staggering. He made a sound, softer than I'd heard from him before. Then he led me back to the main cave. Something shifted after that. I wasn't just a temporary guest anymore. I was being accepted. By month 3, I was fully integrated into their routines. I woke when they woke, ate when they ate, helped with tasks. The males even started taking me on short expeditions into nearby tunnels, teaching me to navigate by touch and sound in the darkness. They had a sophisticated understanding of their environment, knew which passages led where, which chambers had water, where food was stored. They'd been living in this cave system for generations. I could tell by the wear patterns on the rock, the established fire pits, the organization of everything. This wasn't a temporary shelter. This was home. The juveniles taught me their games. They'd wrestle, chase each other through the tunnels, play with rocks and sticks. They included me when they could, though I was slower, weaker, couldn't climb like they could. Little brother became especially attached. He'd sit beside me at meals, share his food, show me things he found. A pretty stone, an interesting bone. Once, a tiny crystal he discovered in one of the deeper chambers. I started to love them. That's the truth I can't avoid. They weren't just creatures I was surviving with. They were people. Different people, but people nonetheless. Gray taught me to repair the furs we slept on, using sinew and bone needles. Another female, who I called Copper for her reddish fur, showed me which plants had medicinal properties. One of the younger males, Runs Fast, I called him, because he was incredibly quick, taught me to move quietly, to step where they stepped, to become nearly silent in the forest. The Alpha included me in what I can only describe as planning sessions. The males would gather, vocalize back and forth, gesture at the cave entrance where snow still blocked most of the opening. They were discussing something important, strategy maybe, or timing. I realized they were planning for spring, for when the snow melted and they could leave the caves freely again. By month 4, I understood about 60% of their communication. I'd learned the names, or my approximations of them, for all 9 individuals. I knew the social hierarchy, the family relationships. 3 of the juveniles were siblings, children of the Alpha and Gray. The 4th was Copper's son. The other male, I called him Watcher because he was always alert, always scanning, was the Alpha's brother or cousin. Something like that. They were a clan, an extended family unit, and I was, temporarily, part of it. In late February, month 4 of my captivity, something changed. The Alpha started taking me deeper into the cave system, showing me things I hadn't seen before. Sacred spaces, maybe. Chambers where bones were arranged in specific patterns. Places where the walls had more elaborate paintings, not just handprints and animals, but complex scenes. One showed multiple Sasquatch figures surrounding smaller figures, humans. The smaller figures were prone, defeated, the Sasquatch standing over them. I asked the Alpha what it meant, using gestures. He looked at me for a long moment, and then made a sound I'd learned meant territory. Then another sound. Protect. They were showing me their history of dealing with humans. And it wasn't friendly. But that didn't click fully. Not yet. I told myself it was ancient history. Conflicts from long ago before they'd retreated so deep into the mountains. In early March, month 5, the snow started melting. We could hear it. Water dripping, running, the sound of spring approaching. The tribe became more active, more alert. The males would take turns standing at the cave entrance, watching, listening. Sometimes they'd vocalize loudly, calls that echoed through the valleys. Communication with others, maybe. Other tribes. Warning them or coordinating with them. I started thinking about escape, about returning to civilization. I'd survived. Against all odds, I'd made it through the winter. I could tell my story, prove that Sasquatch existed, become famous, change science forever. But something held me back, a loyalty to these creatures who'd saved my life, a recognition that exposing them would bring hunters, researchers, people who'd want to capture or kill them. I hadn't decided yet, Hadn't figured out what I'd do when I finally could leave. Then, on March 15th, everything changed. I woke up in the middle of the night to find the entire tribe awake. Alert, tense. The Alpha and Watcher were at the cave entrance, completely still, listening to something outside. The females had gathered the juveniles in the back of the cave. Protective, defensive. Something was wrong. I sat up, looked at Gray, made the gesture for what's happening. She looked at me with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Her lips pulled back, showing teeth, not a smile, a snarl. She made a sound, one I'd heard only rarely, the word for danger. And then another word, one I understood perfectly. Humans. There were humans in their territory. And from the reaction of the tribe, that was very, very bad. The Alpha made a series of sharp vocalizations, commands. The tribe moved instantly. Watcher and Runs Fast disappeared into the tunnel system. The females took the juveniles deeper into the caves. Gray looked at me, gestured firmly, "Stay here." I stayed. But I moved closer to the cave entrance where I could see out. The snow had melted enough to create a gap, maybe 3 feet high, enough to see the valley below in the moonlight. And there, maybe half a mile down the mountain, I saw them. 3 figures moving through the snow. Humans. They had headlamps, rifles, heavy packs. Hunters. Relief flooded through me. Rescue. I could signal them, get help, finally go home. I started toward the entrance. The Alpha's hand clamped on my shoulder, not rough, but immovable. He pulled me back, shook his head, made the danger sound again. "They can help me," I said, knowing he couldn't understand the words, but hoping he'd understand the intent. The Alpha looked at me with those intelligent eyes. Then he made a series of gestures and sounds I'd come to understand over the months. Territory. Protect. Threat. Kill. My blood went cold. No. They're just passing through. They don't know you're here. But the Alpha wasn't listening. He moved to join Watcher at the entrance. The two of them watched the hunters with an intensity that made my skin crawl. This wasn't fear. This was predatory focus. I realized with growing horror what was about to happen. They were going to hunt the hunters. "No," I said louder. "No, please. They're my people. Let them pass." Copper appeared beside me. She made a gentle sound, placed a hand on my arm, trying to calm me. But her eyes were on the hunters below, and there was nothing gentle in that gaze. Over the next hour, I watched the hunters make camp. They set up 2 tents in a clearing, built a fire, cooked food. They were experienced, moving efficiently, staying warm. They had no idea they were being watched. The Alpha, Watcher, and Runs Fast left the cave through the small gap, silent. I lost sight of them immediately in the darkness. I tried to follow. Gray blocked my way, not aggressively, but firmly. I wasn't leaving. "I have to warn them," I said desperately. "Please." Gray made a sound, almost sad. Then she gestured to the back of the cave where the juveniles were hidden, made the sign for protect, then pointed at the hunters' camp. She was telling me, them or us. I sank to the ground, shaking. What could I do? I was one human against a tribe of Sasquatch. I had no weapon, no way to reach the hunters in time. And part of me, God help me, understood. This was their territory. They'd lived here for generations. Humans meant danger, discovery, extinction. But those were people down there. 3 human beings who were about to die, and I was going to let it happen. Hours passed. The hunters' fire burned low. 2 of them went into the tents. 1 stayed out, keeping watch, smoking a cigarette. his rifle across his lap. He never saw them coming. The attack was silent. One moment the hunter was sitting there, smoking. The next, he was gone, dragged backward into the darkness so fast I barely saw it happen. No gunshot, no scream, just gone. The other 2 hunters burst from their tents seconds later, rifles raised, shouting. But they were panicked, disoriented. Their headlamps swept the darkness, but found nothing. They stood back to back, scanning. One of them was yelling, "Dave, Dave, where are you?" The forest was silent. Then the second hunter was taken. Something massive crashed into him from the side, and he flew 10 feet like he'd been hit by a car. He hit a tree and didn't get up. The third hunter fired his rifle. The sound echoed through the valley, sharp, violent. He fired again. Again. He was shooting at shadows. Something hit him from behind. He went down, screaming. That scream cut off abruptly. Then silence. Complete, terrible silence. I was pressed against the cave wall, breathing hard, tears streaming down my face. I just watched 3 men die. Hunted, killed, and I'd done nothing. An hour later, the Alpha, Watcher, and Runs Fast returned to the cave. They were carrying the bodies. All 3 hunters. Dead, necks broken, bodies limp. They brought them into the main chamber and laid them out near the fire. The females emerged from the back caves. The juveniles, too. Little brother looked at the bodies with curiosity. No fear, no disgust. Just interest. What happened next will haunt me until I die. The Alpha vocalized, teaching sounds. He was addressing the juveniles. This was a lesson. He showed them how to examine the bodies, the clothing, the equipment, the weapons. He made them understand. This is the threat. This is what humans bring. Then he demonstrated something else. How to process the bodies. How to remove the clothing, the gear. How to separate meat from bone. They were going to eat them. Not all of it. Not primarily. But parts. The heart, the liver, organs. It was ritualistic, taking strength from the enemy, consuming the threat. And the juveniles participated. The older ones first, then little brother, guided by his mother, Gray. I turned away, vomited into the corner of the cave, collapsed to my knees, shaking. Gray came to me, made a comforting sound, tried to touch my shoulder. I jerked away from her. "Get away from me," I sobbed. "Don't touch me." She pulled back, confused, hurt even. The tribe continued their ritual. When they were done, what remained of the hunters was taken deep into the cave system, buried maybe, or disposed of in underground streams. I never asked, didn't want to know. The equipment, rifles, packs, clothing, was examined and then destroyed, buried separately, removing all evidence. They'd done this before, many times. This was routine. When it was over, the tribe settled down to sleep as if nothing had happened. Full bellies. Threat eliminated. Territory protected. I sat awake all night, staring at the fire, understanding what I'd been living with for 5 months. They weren't just intelligent creatures trying to survive. They were apex predators who'd learned that humans were the greatest threat to their existence. And they dealt with that threat decisively. The Alpha approached me as dawn broke. He sat beside me, made a soft vocalization, reached out slowly and placed a hand on my shoulder, the same gesture of comfort Gray had tried. He made sounds, complex ones. I understood pieces, necessary, protect, family, survive, he was explaining, justifying, maybe even apologizing in his way. I looked at him and saw no monster. Just a leader doing what he thought he had to do to protect his family. But those were people. Those were human beings. The alpha studied my face, reading my horror, my conflict. He made another sound, a question. Are you threat? That was what he was asking. Are you like them? Will you bring more? I shook my head, made the gesture I'd learned, meant no. I won't tell anyone, I swear. I'll never tell. The alpha held my gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. An unmistakably human gesture he must have learned somewhere. He stood and walked away. Over the next 2 weeks, the dynamic changed. The tribe still fed me, sheltered me, but the warmth was gone. Little brother no longer sat beside me. Gray avoided eye contact. They'd seen my reaction and understood. I was other, irreparably other. When the snow finally melted enough in early April, the alpha led me to the cave entrance. He gestured outside, made the sound for go. I was being released. I looked back at the tribe one last time. 9 individuals who'd saved my life, taught me their ways, showed me their culture, and who'd also shown me they were capable of killing humans without hesitation. Thank you, I said, knowing they wouldn't understand. I'm sorry. The alpha made one final sound. A warning. Don't return. Don't tell. I climbed through the gap and started down the mountain. I never looked back. It took me 4 days to reach civilization. 4 days stumbling through melting snow, following streams downhill, half-starved and completely traumatized. A logging crew found me on a back road, delirious and hypothermic. They got me to a hospital in Prince George. I told them I'd been caught in the November storm, that I'd survived in caves, that an avalanche had destroyed my equipment. I said nothing about what or who had actually kept me alive. The doctors were amazed I'd survived at all. 5 months alone in the wilderness in winter. It was miraculous, they said. They had no idea. The RCMP interviewed me, asked if I'd seen any other hikers, any signs of missing persons. 3 hunters had been reported missing in the area in March. Had I encountered them? No, I lied, my stomach turning. I saw no one. They showed me photos. Dave Morrison, age 34, Kyle Preston, 41, James Chen, 28. 3 men with families, with people who loved them, who would never know what happened to them. If you remember anything, the officer said. Anything at all? I will, I said. Another lie. I was released after 2 weeks, physically recovered, mentally destroyed. I went home to my apartment in Vancouver. My climbing gear was still there, waiting. Photos of mountains on the walls. My whole life had been about the wilderness. I couldn't look at any of it. I quit climbing, quit my job as a guide, told everyone I'd lost my nerve after nearly dying. That was partially true. The nightmares started immediately. Every night, I'd see the hunters being dragged into darkness, see little brother learning to tear into human flesh, see the alpha's eyes asking, "Are you threat?" I'd wake up screaming. I started drinking, heavily. Anything to quiet my mind. My girlfriend left. My friends drifted away. I became isolated, paranoid. What if I talked in my sleep? What if someone suspected? I thought about telling someone, going to the authorities with the truth. But who would believe me? And if they did believe me, what then? Hunting parties in the mountains, scientists trying to capture them, media circus. The tribe would be destroyed, or they'd retreat deeper, kill more people trying to find them. Either way, more death, more blood on my hands. So I stayed silent. I got a job doing construction, physical work that exhausted me. Moved to a small town in Alberta, away from the mountains, away from memories. But I couldn't stop thinking about them, about what they were, what they did. I started researching. Disappearances in British Columbia wilderness areas. I found dozens over the decades. Hikers, hunters, campers who'd vanished without a trace. Bodies never found. Cases that went cold. How many of them had gotten too close to Sasquatch territory? How many had been dealt with the same way as those 3 hunters? The pattern was there if you knew to look for it. Clusters of disappearances in specific areas, always in deep wilderness, always in regions where Sasquatch had been reportedly sighted. I found reports going back 50 years, 100. Indigenous peoples had stories about them, the forest giants who protected their territory fiercely, who took people who disrespected the mountains. I'd thought those were myths, warnings to keep people out of dangerous areas. They were warnings about something real. In 1985, I married. Sarah was kind, patient. She knew I had trauma from my ordeal, but not the details. We had 2 children, you, Marcus, and your sister Emily. I tried to be normal, tried to be a good husband and father. But part of me was still in that cave, watching 3 men die, understanding that I was complicit. You asked me once, Marcus, when you were maybe 10, Dad, did you ever see a bear when you were lost? I almost told you then, almost said, I saw something much worse than bears. Instead, I said, no, son, I didn't see anything. More lies. The decades passed, 1990s, 2000s, 2010s. I kept researching disappearances. The pattern continued. 1 or 2 people per year in the BC wilderness. Never in the same exact spot, but always in remote areas. Always without a trace. They were still there. Still protecting their territory. Still teaching their young. And I said nothing. In 2018, Sarah died. Cancer. It was fast and brutal. You kids were grown by then, off living your own lives. I was alone again. And the guilt got heavier. I'd kept this secret for 40 years. 40 years of people disappearing. 40 years of families with no answers. 40 years of watching the news and wondering, could I have prevented that? If I'd told the truth in 1979, would those people still be alive? Or would there just be more bodies, including the entire tribe that saved my life? I don't know. I'll never know. Last year, they told me I had pancreatic cancer. Stage 4, inoperable. 6 months, maybe a year. That's when I decided to tell you, Marcus. To record this. To finally let the truth out. You're going to ask why I'm doing this now? Why not take it to my grave? Because people need to know what's out there. Not to hunt them, not to capture them, but to understand. There are beings in those mountains that are intelligent, cultural, sophisticated. They have families. They have art and language and traditions. They saved my life when they could have left me to die. But they are also apex predators. They view humans as threats, and they're not wrong. We destroy habitat, we hunt, we encroach. From their perspective, we're the monsters. Those 3 hunters in March 1979, they weren't doing anything wrong. They were just in the wrong place. And they paid with their lives. That's the reality. That's the truth. Should I have warned people? Maybe. But warning them means revealing the tribe. And revealing them means their extinction. So I chose. I chose to protect the tribe over protecting my own species. I've lived with that choice for 43 years. Was it the right choice? I don't know. All I know is that there are maybe a few dozen Sasquatch left in the BC wilderness, maybe fewer. They're dying out. Habitat loss, small gene pool, human expansion. In another generation or 2, they'll probably be gone. Extinct. And maybe that's for the best. Maybe 2 intelligent species can't coexist on the same planet. Maybe one has to die out for the other to survive. But they were people, Marcus. Different people, but people. They loved their children. They created art. They mourned their dead. They tried to survive in a world that was increasingly hostile to them. And when I remember little brother showing me that tiny crystal he found, so proud, so innocent, before I saw him learn to kill, I can't help but grieve for what they are, and what they had to become to survive. You're going to release this recording. People will call it a hoax. They'll say I was delusional from medication or grief or guilt. They won't believe. That's fine. Maybe that's better. But some people will believe. Some people will go looking. If you're one of those people, hear me. Don't go into those mountains looking for them. Don't try to prove they exist. Don't try to make contact. If you get too close to their territory, you won't come back, and no one will ever find your body. They're not evil. They're not monsters. They're just trying to survive, and they will do whatever it takes to protect their families, just like we would. That's the lesson I learned in those 9 months. That's what I saw. 2 species, both intelligent, both capable of love and culture and art, both capable of terrible violence when threatened, and only one can inherit the earth. We won. They lost. That's evolution. But God forgive me. I wish it could have been different. My name is Thomas Beaulieu. In November 1978, I was rescued by a Sasquatch tribe. They kept me alive through the winter. They showed me their world. And in March 1979, I watched them kill 3 human hunters and teach their young to do the same. I kept that secret for 43 years. Now, 2 weeks before my death, I'm telling you, not to expose them, not to hunt them, but to remember them. Because in a few more years, they'll be gone. And the only proof they ever existed will be this recording, which most people won't believe. And maybe that's their final protection, that we can't believe in them, that we'll dismiss their existence even when the truth is right in front of us. The tribe taught me one last thing before I left. Some truths are too dangerous to speak. Some mysteries need to stay mysteries. Some things are better left in the wilderness where they belong. I hope I did the right thing. I hope those 3 families can forgive me wherever they are. And I hope the tribe is still there, still surviving, still protecting their children, still painting their history on cave walls where no human will ever see it. If you're listening to this, if you believe even a little, stay away from those mountains. Let them have their territory. Let them live what little time they have left. They're not monsters. We're the intruders. God help anyone who forgets that.
This is Marcus Beaulieu. My father died on September 29, 2021. As he requested, I waited 1 year before releasing this recording. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if my father actually lived with Sasquatch for 9 months, or if the cancer and medication created false memories, or if guilt over something else manifested as this elaborate story. All I know is he believed it. He lived with this burden his entire life, and it destroyed him. Since releasing this recording 3 months ago, I've received hundreds of messages. Most call it a hoax. Some believe. A few people have sent me information about their own missing family members in BC, asking if my father might have known what happened. I have no answers for them. Last month, 2 hikers disappeared in the northern BC wilderness, near Prince George. Their car was found, their equipment was found, but they vanished. The search was called off after 2 weeks. Case remains open but cold. I think about my father's recording, about his warning, and I wonder, are they still there? Still protecting their territory? I'll never know, and I'll never go looking. Some mysteries should stay unsolved. Some truths are too heavy to carry. My father carried one for 43 years. Now I carry it too. And now so do you.